The theme park that lasted 151 days. Someone spent $400 million building a rock and roll theme park. They convinced Led Zeppelin, a band that had rejected every commercial licensing request for 40 years, to put their name on a roller coaster. They hired 1,400 employees. They opened on schedule, on budget, in April of 2008, and 151 days later, they filed for bankruptcy. Hard Rock Park lasted less time than a summer internship, less time than the average season of a reality television show. It is one of the most complete theme park failures in American history, and the story of how it happened is not really about rock music at all. It is about the difference between a number that looks compelling on a spreadsheet and the actual human being that number is supposed to represent. Those two things turned out to be very different people. The idea. The concept originated with a Myrtle Beach businessman named Jim Goodnight, who spent years developing the idea of a theme park built specifically around rock music history. The Hard Rock Cafe brand, founded in London in 1971, expanded into a global chain of restaurants selling memorabilia alongside overpriced burgers, provided the cultural framework. What Goodnight imagined was taking that brand identity and expanding it into a full-scale theme park experience. Myrtle Beach was a deliberate choice. The Grand Strand, the 60-mile stretch of Atlantic coastline in South Carolina, draws approximately 14 million visitors per year. That number looked compelling. It was also misleading. The 14 million people who came to Myrtle Beach came for the beach. They were families from the Carolinas, Georgia, and Tennessee, most of them driving, most of them value-conscious, most of them with young children who had opinions about vacation spending that did not involve analyzing Led Zeppelin's back catalog. The business plan assumed that placing a $400 million theme park in front of 14 million people meant enough of them would walk in. What the business plan didn't account for was the difference between a visitor who chose their destination because of your park and a visitor who chose their destination and then had to be convinced to also visit your park. That distinction is the entire story. Everything else is detail. The bill, $400 million, 55 acres, and a licensing strategy that had never been attempted at this scale in the theme park industry. The headline attractions were built around individually licensed rock songs and rock legacies. Led Zeppelin The Ride was the signature coaster, built around a band that had turned down Cadillac, Apple, and Nike for decades. The Beatles' Love Lounge, Nights in White Satin, The Trip, a psychedelic dark ride. Every major attraction required a separate negotiation with a separate artist, estate, or rights holder. The licensing costs were real, and the ongoing royalty obligations created a financial structure in which the park needed to generate substantial revenue, not just to cover operating costs, but to service the licensing payments built into every single attraction agreement. The Led Zeppelin deal alone was documented as a landmark in rock licensing history. That achievement was genuine and significant. The problem was that the people most motivated to seek out a Led Zeppelin roller coaster were not in Myrtle Beach in sufficient numbers to fill the park on a Tuesday in July. The park was financed through approximately $125 million in equity and $275 million in debt. Debt service on $275 million requires consistent attendance revenue. The market that was supposed to generate that revenue had not been consulted on whether it agreed to the arrangement. The Summer Hard Rock Park opened on April 19, 2008, 6 weeks after Bear Stearns collapsed. The park would close 6 weeks before Lehman Brothers failed. Its entire operating life occurred inside the opening movement of the worst American financial crisis since the Great Depression. Gas prices hit $4 per gallon nationally in June 2008, specifically reducing the willingness of the drive-to-market Carolinas and Tennessee families to spend money on anything discretionary. Consumer confidence was declining every week. The discretionary spending environment for a $40 theme park admission was the worst in decades. And it was getting worse every month the park was open. Attendance was below projections from the first week. The financial model had projected 3 to 4 million visitors in the first year. Industry analysts, who later reviewed the bankruptcy documents, estimated actual attendance during the 151-day season at somewhere between 400,000 and 500,000 visitors, roughly 12% of the projected figure. That is not a shortfall that marketing can close. That is a different reality. Management responded with discounting, cutting ticket prices from $42 to $25 to drive attendance. The math of a discounted full park is not substantially better than the math of a correctly priced empty one. The 1,400 employees who had been hired, trained, and put in costume continued working through the summer, while the financial situation deteriorated in ways none of them were told about. The bankruptcy filing on September 18, 2008, was the first indication most of the staff had that anything was critically wrong. The park closed 4 days later. 1,400 people learned that they no longer had jobs in the span of a week. That part does not appear in the business school case study version of this story. It is the part that is hardest to forget. What it teaches. Hard Rock Park was, by the accounts of every enthusiast who visited it, a genuinely good theme park. The theming was authentic. The rides delivered on their concept. The rock music integration was executed with real care and real money. The park failed not because it was bad, but because it was built with destination park economics inside a regional beach market that had never asked for a destination park. That distinction is the first and most important thing the park leaves behind. Destination parks succeed because guests specifically planned their trip around them. Regional parks succeed because guests are already nearby and the park is accessible and reasonably priced. Hard Rock Park needed guests to choose it over the beach they had driven several hours specifically to reach. The conversion rate on that ask was never going to service $275 million in debt, regardless of how good the Led Zeppelin coaster was. The second lesson is timing, and it is the hardest one to plan around. A different economic environment in 2008 would not have solved the location problem, but it would have bought runway, time to adjust pricing, time to build regional loyalty, time to find the audience that genuinely wanted what the park was offering. That audience existed. It simply wasn't large enough or close enough to save the numbers before the money ran out. $400 million. 151 days. Led Zeppelin on a roller coaster that almost nobody rode. The park is gone. The lesson is still there for anyone who wants to use it. If this video is worth your time, hit the like button and subscribe. There is more where this came from.